No man would want to stay with her. Mom's words cracked through the silence like a whip, her voice loud enough for the entire family gathered in the room to hear. She didn't flinch. She wanted it to hurt. My father leaned back in his chair and laughed, a cold, hollow sound that made my skin prickle. The laughter spread like poison through the whispers around the room. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I felt the heat crawl up my neck, my fists clenched under the table, but my face remained still. They wanted me to break. They wanted me to cry. Instead, I looked straight at them and said calmly, clearly, "We'll see." Gasps flickered across the room. My cousin snorted. My aunt shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't give them time to respond. I stood, my heels clicking against the marble floor, each step defiant, cutting through their laughter. "Where do you think you're going?" Dad called after me, mocking. I didn't turn back. "Somewhere you'll wish I hadn't." The door slammed behind me, but their laughter still echoed in my ears. I drove through the night with my hands gripping the wheel so tightly the leather dug into my palms. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from rage burning so deep it hurt to breathe. Because they didn't know. They didn't know about him, and they had no idea what tomorrow was about to bring. Morning came, and with it, silence. My family gathered again, smug, their whispers dripping with pity and amusement. "She'll come crawling back," Mom muttered, pouring herself coffee. Dad smirked, reading the paper like nothing had happened. But when the heavy oak doors opened and my husband stepped inside, their faces drained of color. He wasn't dressed casually like the man they assumed had left me. No, he walked. In wearing a tailored suit, sharp and commanding, documents tucked under his arm. His presence filled the room, steady and unshakable. Mom's cup rattled against the saucer. Dad lowered his paper slowly, confusion shadowing his face. My husband's voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "Good morning. I believe there's something you should know. Every contract you've signed in the last 6 months, every agreement you thought was in your control, is in my name." The room fell silent, not even a breath. I stood beside him, watching my family's faces twist in shock. The same people who had called me worthless less than 12 hours ago. Mom's lips trembled. Dad's laugh was gone. And for the first time, they understood. The girl they mocked wasn't standing alone anymore. The air in the living room was suffocating. My father's smirk faltered, his newspaper now crumpled in his fists. My mother's fingers twitched nervously on the coffee cup, eyes darting between me and the man beside me. For years they had spoken as if I were nothing but an inconvenience, a burden, a woman no one would ever stay with. And yet here stood my husband, solid, confident, holding the very foundation of their empire in his hands. Dad finally broke the silence, his voice low but shaking. "What? What are you talking about? Don't play games in my house." My husband didn't blink. He placed the thick folder of contracts onto the table, sliding them across the polished wood until they stopped right in front of my father. The sound was like a gavel slamming down. "Not a game," he said. "Every deal you signed with your partners, every merger you thought you controlled, they were funneled through holding companies I own. Which means you work for me now." Gasps erupted around the room. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth. My uncle leaned forward, squinting at the papers, as though by staring hard enough he could undo what was written there. I crossed my arms, my voice steady. "You told everyone last night that no man would want me, that I'd never have stability. But you were too blinded by your arrogance to see what was standing right in front of you. Mom slammed her cup down, porcelain shattering. This is ridiculous. Contracts, papers. You think you can just walk in here and humiliate us in front of our family? My husband tilted his head, his calmness more terrifying than anger. I don't think, he replied. I know. And humiliation? That's what you've done to your daughter, time and time again. You just never expected the tables to turn. Dad's face went red, veins straining against his neck. He stood abruptly, jabbing a finger toward me. You knew about this, didn't you? You schemed this. I met his glare, my voice cold and sharp. No, I survived you. There's a difference. The words cut deeper than I imagined. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked small suddenly, no longer the towering figure who had controlled every room, every conversation, every decision. My cousin whispered under her breath. She planned this the whole time. Mom shot her a deadly look, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The illusion of their power was cracking, and everyone could see it. Dad snatched the contracts off the table, scanning furiously through the pages. His hands trembled. These are forged. They have to be. There's no way. Check the signatures, my husband interrupted. Your signature is on every page. You signed them yourself. All legal. All binding. The room tilted for a moment, the tension so thick it felt like breathing smoke. Finally, Mom snapped, her voice shrill. You don't belong here. You, both of you. You think this makes you powerful? You're still nothing without us. Without this family name. Without this house. House? I cut her off, stepping forward. This house? It's not even yours anymore. The room froze. Heads whipped toward me. Even my husband looked at me, surprised. I pulled a folded deed from my purse, letting it fall onto the table beside the contracts. You were too busy mocking me to notice the foreclosure notice last month. I bought it outright. This house? It belongs to me now. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in my life, they didn't have a word to throw back at me. My father's hand tightened on the contracts. His pride was slipping, his empire crumbling in front of his relatives. He had spent years teaching me to be quiet, to be obedient, to know my place. But today, my place was standing above him. Get out, he finally growled, his voice hoarse. Both of you. Get out of this house. I leaned closer, my words low, each one deliberate. It's not your house. You're the guests now. The color drained from his face. Mom's hands shook, clutching the arm of her chair. Around the room, our relatives shifted uncomfortably, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some looked horrified, others amused. Maybe they had wanted to see this fall for years. Then came the breaking point. Dad slammed his fists on the table, sending the coffee-stained saucer flying to the floor. You think you've won? You think this changes anything? I'll rebuild. I'll tear you apart in court, both of you. My husband leaned forward, locking eyes with him. His voice was calm, steady, but carried a quiet threat that silenced the entire room. Try. Just try. But you won't win. Because I didn't just buy your contracts or your house. I bought your silence. You'll find out soon enough how many of your so-called friends were happy to sell you out. The room pulsed with shock. My father looked as if the walls were closing in. My mother finally stood, her mask cracking, her voice desperate now instead of cruel. You can't do this. This is our life. Our reputation. Our reputation? I shot back, stepping closer until I was eye to eye with her. What reputation? The one where you mock your own daughter in front of strangers? Where you cancel ceremonies, laugh at me, strip me of dignity, just so you can feel powerful? You lost your reputation long before today. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just silence. And in that silence, I felt it for the first time in years. Control. The whispers turned into open murmurs, tension spreading like fire across the room. My aunt leaned over to my uncle, her voice sharp but just loud enough for me to hear. "I told you this family was heading for disaster. Look at them now." Dad's head snapped toward her. "Shut your mouth," he barked, but the words only made him look weaker, more desperate. For the first time, the cracks in his authority were showing, and once they were visible, no one could unsee them. Mom turned to the relatives, voice trembling but defiant. "Don't listen to her. Don't listen to them. They're lying, manipulating you with these tricks." But the contracts on the table, the deed lying flat for everyone to see, told a story no denial could erase. My husband calmly adjusted his cufflinks, his presence commanding more respect than either of my parents had in years. "You think this is about contracts?" Dad snarled at him. "This is about family. And you—" He pointed at me, his finger shaking. "You betrayed your own blood. For him." I felt something break inside me. Not fear, not shame. Something harder, stronger. "No," I said firmly. "You betrayed me. You laughed at me, humiliated me, treated me like nothing. Family doesn't do that. Family doesn't throw their own daughter to the wolves to protect their pride." Gasps echoed again, but this time they weren't from shock at me. They were at the sight of my father, once untouchable, being called out, publicly, brutally, by his own daughter. My cousin Matthew finally spoke up. He was usually the quiet one, never stepping into conflict, but now his voice cut through the tension. "Uncle, she's right. The way you treat her, it's cruel. We all see it. We just never said anything because—" He trailed off, glancing around the room. "Because we were afraid of you." The room buzzed. My father's face twisted in disbelief, then rage. "Afraid of me? You ungrateful brat. Everything you have is because of me." But the words sounded hollow. His authority was slipping like sand through his fingers. I locked eyes with Matthew, giving him the smallest nod. "Thank you," I whispered. Mom's mask shattered then. Her voice was shrill, panicked. "Stop this, all of you. You don't understand the damage they're trying to do. If you side with her—" My husband interrupted smoothly, his tone like steel wrapped in velvet. "Siding with her doesn't mean betraying anyone. It means standing for what's right, something you've forgotten." Dad pounded the table. Again, but this time, no one jumped. The fear was gone. All that was left was pity. That's when Uncle Robert leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "I've worked with you for years," he said to Dad, "and I've seen how you treat her. Dismissing her, ridiculing her. You think power makes you untouchable. But power doesn't last when it's built on cruelty." Dad stared at him, stunned. Uncle Robert turned to me. "If this house is yours now, if those contracts are his," he gestured at my husband, "then maybe it's time the rest of us decide who we respect more." The shift was palpable. My parents weren't just losing control. They were losing the very foundation of their influence, loyalty. Mom tried one last desperate play. She stood, her hands gripping the back of the chair for support. "You'll regret this," she hissed at me. "You think you're strong now, but when people turn on you, when you're alone, you'll realize we were the only ones who truly cared." I laughed softly. Not mockingly, but with the weight of years of pain. Cared? You don't even know what that word means. Caring doesn't sound like, "No man would want her." Caring doesn't cancel ceremonies to humiliate your own daughter. Caring doesn't come wrapped in laughter at my expense. Her face crumpled, but still she didn't apologize. Couldn't. Pride was all she had left. My husband placed a hand gently on my back, grounding me, before speaking to the entire room. "Listen carefully. The era of intimidation is over. Every person here has a choice. Continue enabling two people who thrived on humiliation, or stand with honesty, dignity, and respect. One by one, heads began to nod. The weight of silence wasn't on me anymore. It was on them, my parents, the so-called pillars of this family. Dad stumbled back into his chair, his hands shaking, as he stared at the contracts again, as if the ink would magically vanish. This isn't possible, he muttered, his voice almost broken. It is, I said simply. And it's done. The final blow came when my aunt, Mom's own sister, stood up. I won't keep pretending. You've hurt her for too long. If siding with her means cutting ties with you, so be it. The room erupted. Relatives argued, whispered, made choices in real time. And I stood there, calm, centered, no longer the quiet girl in the corner. For once, they had to look at me. Not as their victim, but as their equal. No, as their better. As the chaos swirled, Dad leaned forward, his voice low, almost a whisper only I could hear. You think this makes you powerful, but power fades. And when it does, you'll come crawling back. I met his stare without flinching. No, Dad, the only thing fading here is you. And with that, I turned away, leaving him drowning in the silence of his own defeat. The room had turned into a battlefield of whispers and shifting loyalties. Aunts and uncles were quietly taking sides. Cousins were no longer looking at my father with fear, and the once mighty walls of his authority had become paper thin. Dad sat hunched, the contracts limp in his trembling hands, his face pale. Mom clung to the back of her chair as if holding on would keep her world from collapsing. My husband straightened his tie, his voice cutting through the chaos with quiet authority. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. You mocked your daughter, stripped her of dignity in front of the people she loved, and you thought there would never be a price. Well, here it is. I stepped forward, my heels clicking, like gunshots on the hardwood floor. I let my eyes sweep the room, making sure every relative heard what I was about to say. All my life, I was told I was a burden, that no man would stay with me, that I wasn't worth respect. Last night, they tried to cancel my ceremony just to watch me squirm. I turned my gaze back to Mom and Dad. But today, you're the ones being canceled. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Mom finally broke it, her voice cracking. We're still your parents. You can't just erase us. Parents, I whispered, my throat tight. Parents build. They protect. They love. You tore me down and laughed while doing it. That's not parenting. That's cruelty. Her lips trembled, but she had nothing left to fire back. My father slammed the contracts on the table, his last act of defiance. Fine, take it all. The house, the contracts, the family's sympathy. But mark my words, you'll never escape our shadow. Everyone will remember us, not you. I leaned closer, my voice low, sharp, and final. They'll remember, yes, but not the way you think. They'll remember the day your empire fell because of your arrogance. They'll remember the daughter you underestimated, and they'll remember that you laughed until the laughter stopped. His jaw clenched, but there was no fight left in his eyes. Just emptiness. One by one, my relatives began to leave. Some hugged me on the way out, quiet words of support passing between us. Others just avoided my parents' eyes, unwilling to face their downfall head-on. The room that had once been theirs felt more like mine with every departing step. Finally, only the four of us remained. Me, my husband, my mother, and my father. I straightened, my voice calm. You wanted me gone yesterday. You laughed when you thought I had nothing. Now it's you who will leave. Mom's head shot up, her voice desperate. You can't mean, my husband interrupted, his tone final. The deed doesn't lie. You no longer live here. The color drained from their faces. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For the first time, the man who had controlled every conversation had no words. I walked to the door, holding it open. "Go," I said simply. "Find a place where laughter still hides your cruelty. It won't be here." They hesitated, clinging to the last shreds of pride. But eventually, Dad stood. His shoulders slumped, his face drawn. Mom followed silently, her eyes wet but still too proud to cry in front of me. They walked past me, out the door, into a world that no longer bent to them. When the door shut behind them, the silence in the house was different. Not suffocating, freeing. My husband slipped his arm around my shoulders. "You did it," he murmured. I exhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting off me. "No," I said, "we did it." For the first time, I felt something I thought I'd never feel in this house. Peace. The laughter that once broke me was gone, and in its place there was strength. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't shouting back, it's standing tall, while the ones who mocked you crumble in silence.